Speaker is Bonnie Van, and she's a best-selling author of The Life Brief. And I'm really excited that she's joining us today. Thank you, Bonnie. So I remember to get Bonnie here, there were multiple emails exchanges, time difference, and I remember your last email which said if it happens because we were not being able to connect. But she also spoke at the main Cannes Lion. And so we have these amazing speakers who are joining us today. And this is Bonnie's new book, The Life Brief, a playbook for no regrets living. And she's just signed this for me, so I'm really happy. And yes, and you all can ask her any questions. So we'll make this session a bit interactive.
Yeah, let's talk.
And so a bit about Bonnie. Bonnie is the creator of the Life Brief that makes help people do bold, clear life decisions. She's been 30 years in brand strategy, shaping iconic brands, campaigns for social impact, and she's a global speaker, teacher, life and leadership strategist who's worked with Accenture, Adidas, Airbnb, Apple, Google, NBA, TBWA, and great organizations. Oh my God, Bonnie, that's amazing. So, Bonnie, in your own words, I want you to tell us a bit about your journey. And now you're this amazing author. So, please tell us about your journey. And
Well,
how did you
Stuti, first of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for all the work that you do. I have not been in the business for 50 years, but I have been doing it for 30 years.
30? I said 30.
Oh, okay. On my way to 50. No, I've been a brand strategy leader for 30 years, 3 decades. And along the way, I had a personal crisis of meaning in 2010. And as a reflex, I wrote a creative brief for my life. So I took the craft of strategy, brand strategy, the art and science of it in my darkest hour and then applied it to my personal life, which at that time I thought my marriage was broken. I had 3 young kids under the age of 5 years old. I was the main breadwinner of our house. I was also the 24-hour restaurant, the head of housekeeping, the sous chef, the play date organizer. So I was exhausted. I was frustrated. I was commuting long hours to work. I was flying across the country. My youngest child, Ruby, was only a year old. And I thought my husband was to blame. I thought that I was doing the unfair share of the work in our family, and I was fed up. I thought, I can't do this anymore. And I was met with these unbearable questions like, wow, did I marry the right person? Am I with the right partner? Can I hold up this big life that we've created? And what if the answers are no? And that was swirling inside me for over a year and a half. And to no answers. And then one day I found myself in the parking lot of the supermarket, unable to get out of the car. And I could hear the rain pounding on the metal of the car. And I was paralyzed. I felt stuck physically, as stuck physically as I was emotionally. And I called a friend, and I finally spoke the unspeakable, which were those questions. Am I with the right person? And of course, the questions, or the answers to the questions didn't come up in the parking lot of the grocery store. But once I had spoken them, they were right there, front and center of my mind. And a few weeks later on a business trip, they came up again late in the night. And I did something for the first time that I had ever done, which was, okay, I unpacked it. I allowed the questions to sink in and stir, along with one driving, penetrating question, which is, what do I really want? And what do I want that had nothing to do with social expectations, the way I was raised culturally as an Asian woman, what my parents wanted for me, what my husband expected, or even what my children needed. I gave myself, for the first time in my whole life, permission to answer with naked honesty what I really wanted. And I let it all pour out onto the page because I'm a strategist. So I collect the data. I collect the emotional data. And what happened after maybe an hour of writing, I mean, messy, messy writing. This is not perfect, polished prose. But what happened was two things that took me by surprise. The first was catharsis. For the first time, I emptied out all the stuff I was suppressing, holding, stuffing down inside me. And it felt so freeing to get it out onto the page. But the second thing that happened was the aha. What had come out onto those pages was a different story than the one I was holding in my head, which was my marriage is broken, my husband is to blame. And what I saw on the pages was not that my marriage was broken. It was that my relationship with time was what was broken. All the ways I was spilling and spending my time trying to be the people pleaser, the perfect mother, daughter, friend, the hero at work, trying to win the next big account, save the day, set myself up for the next promotion, the next big award, and always left too exhausted to invest my time in the relationships that mattered most, including the relationship to myself.
I think that's the most important.
Yes.
Is the relationship with yourself.
Yes, and when that aha struck me, I immediately went to solve it. Solve the new problem that had emerged, which is often the case of strategy. You get faced with a project, you have no idea about that topic, that category, that industry. You have some assumptions, hypotheses, but then as soon as you start doing the research, you uncover the real truth, the insights. And that was my truth, my insight, that I was spending my time in all the wrong places. And that's why my marriage was hurting. That's why I was angry, bitter, frustrated, exhausted. And so as soon as I saw that, I started to reimagine my time. And that reimagining became my very first life brief, which is essentially a creative brief for your life.
Amazing. And I can see your son. Is he your oldest or your youngest?
This is my oldest, yeah.
Okay. So I have got my young daughter too. So
Yeah, I love that. I love when our family can join us, blend that work and personal. But my son was 4 years old when this happened.
So you must be a proud son. I've just taken you on spot.
He's also my social media manager at the moment.
Yeah. So I don't want my daughter to hear that. She'll say, I'll become your social media manager doing all your Instagram stories. So I'm not sure if that's...
I think she's well occupied in her own passion right now.
And, so I actually want you to talk about the life... Yes. A bit about the life brief. And of course, you did touch upon... So how long did it take you to write the book? And,
Interesting, yeah.
How did it, how did it help you on a very personal level?
So I was invited to write the book 10 years after that first brief. So I wrote the first brief for my life. It completely changed, transformed our family life. I like to say it took us from the dark chapter of our family life into the golden chapter. And we moved. I completely reoriented my work life. I stepped back into a 4-day week. We moved to a city that was less expensive. So my husband could actually stay back and become the lead parent of the family, which freed me up emotionally to travel for work and really lean into what I did. It was hard at first, but eventually I realized, wow, I really love this, and I trust who's at home. We moved into a neighborhood where we were only 1 block away from everything we needed. So no more shoving crying babies into car seats to get them everywhere. The school was a block away, the grocery store, the coffee shop, the pizzeria, everything we needed. And my agency met me at my brief. They allowed me to work remotely, which this was 10 years before we even had the language for remote or hybrid work. So it seems very common now.
Now it's a reality. Everybody
Now
wants work
everyone's
from home. Yeah.
reality, thank goodness. And there are challenges with that, as I'm sure Kim spoke about earlier. 10 years after that, I had been teaching this practice to everyone from Accenture to Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop. And I met a literary agent in 2020 who said, hey, let's do it. Let's write the book about this practice.
Wow.
And my immediate reaction was, oh no, I don't have time to write a book. First of all, I'm a strategist. So I distill everything into 1 word, 3 words, 1 sentence, 1 idea. I don't write volumes. And she said, that's okay. You can do it. We'll find your way to do it. You have plenty to say, plenty to teach. And I said, okay, but I run a big agency. We have 400 employees. I have 4 kids. There's no way I have time to write a book. And she said, that's okay. We'll take as long as you need. And then 3 months later, the pandemic hit. And all the soccer games, gymnastics meets, client meetings, happy hours, they all went away. So it took me a year to write the proposal and 4 days to land the book deal with Simon & Schuster, and then 3 years to finish the book.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. And you've also, led strategy for some of the biggest brands, world's biggest brands. And what's the biggest difference with writing a brief for a brand and writing one for your life?
Yeah. Well, what's similar is you have to get messy. You have to do the research. And when we're getting messy for ourselves, it means giving ourselves permission to be nakedly honest about what we really want, without editing, without judgment, without withholding. That's the hardest part for people, and that's where most people bail, because they're afraid of that question. They're afraid of disappointing the people around them. They're afraid of going against everything they've been taught or told by their cultures. I know this. I'm an Asian immigrant. I immigrated from Taiwan. My parents are Chinese from mainland China. I came to the US when I was 6 years old. So I know the pressures of what's expected. And in my culture, it's society first, family first.
That's the same in India.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as a woman, you are dead last. And so just overcoming that hurdle, this sense that, oh my gosh, it's selfish to ask myself, what do I really want? And then there's a whole story around, if I allow myself to answer it, won't I just set myself up for disappointment? And I've heard that again and again. Regardless of what culture you're from, I've heard people who said, my parents told me never answer that question honestly, because I will only invite disappointment into my life. But that is the opposite of what I've learned in the last 15 years, and not just for my own life, because I have a life brief about every part of my life, but what I've learned from all the people who have dared to courageously do this practice is that it is the transformative act that you can invest in yourself, which is to give yourself permission to answer it honestly. I call it naked honesty.
Wow. I love the term.
And then to capture it, collect it in writing. Because our minds are too permissive, right?
Yes.
And for me, I'm in menopause. So as soon as it enters my mind, it's out and I never retrieve it again. So the act of capturing and writing, it's collecting your ingredients for clarity. And those ingredients become the clay.
To write.
Yeah, for you to see on the page, what are your patterns? What are the stories that are holding you back, making you hide, making you play it safe or small? You get to see what you're avoiding, what you're resisting. And what I find, I meet people everywhere with huge, tremendous potential, but are playing it safe or small because somewhere along the way, someone told them they're too much, or more likely, they're not enough.
Yes.
And when you can face those stories eye to eye, then you can reauthor them. And that's what the creative brief is all about. Now, in a creative brief for a company, we write the target audience, but the target audience here is all about you. The clarity is the same.
Same. But, you know, I just want to add, so of course my other business is communications. It's all brands and marketing. And the Women Inspiring Network came about in the pandemic because a client of mine said, let's do a webinar, but I have no budgets. And I said, we'll only do it if we have women change makers. And of course, we've done some 200 panel discussions.
Wow.
And our inaugural lounge at Davos earlier this year, and then Cannes, and in September is New York. And we do have one of our speakers here who had joined us in Davos, Mihaela. She's from Macedonia. And but I just wanted to sort of come back. What I have noticed in our couple of years of journey, because obviously we were just a community, and we were doing these online discussions, and I'm meeting all inspiring women like you at different parts of the world. But I feel there's been a shift also. There's a bit of a shift the way especially Asian women are thinking. Like I see a lot of family offices in India, but I can see the women who are in their 50s who may not have worked earlier and may just have had a side role in their husband's business, but if their own children are going to Brown or Yale or something, now they want to sort of, and some of them were my speakers at Davos, so now they want to sort of be able to, come out, and now they're encouraging. So it's a good shift which is happening.
It's a fantastic shift. Yes.
Not just for Asian women, but otherwise also globally. So it's a nice thing which is happening because these discussions help us to think differently.
Yes. What you're observing is a cultural momentum that is driven by an inner force. And I think that's what the Life Brief is all about. It's continuing to unlock the power from within in a world that in this moment wants to have power over us. And I think the more women realize, lean into, embrace, and bring full force into is unlocking that power, the passion, the purpose they have, and the work that they create, the ripples they create, the movements they start to generate are massive, and you can do that at any age. I'm on the board of a new program at Yale that works with people who have already had peaks in their career, and they're looking at the third act. Wow. So these are people 50 plus, and whether they have achieved the heights of their industry, we're all living longer. So for the first time in history, we all have to think about what happens after 50. We're not going to retire, but we're ready to rewire and refire. And so your kids are raised. You've done the most tremendous job there is to do. That's the most creative job, the act of creation, creating life. But now, where are you going to direct your attention, your energy, your passion, your purpose, and your creativity?
I love it. I love what you said. And do you have a favorite part in the book? Would you like to read it out to us?
Oh my gosh.
That's the book.
Let's see. This is a hard question. Spontaneously. Let's see.
Or any part which you remember, any line which you loved it.
Okay. Stop practicing. No, sorry. Let's start that over. Start practicing. Stop planning. The life brief is a practice for getting clear on what you want, not a plan for how to get there. Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of plans when it comes to finances, ad campaigns, and organizing events. But when it comes to navigating life, plans prevent us from seeing the possibilities around us. When we're so attached to one path or one outcome, we lose our peripheral vision and fail to see the unexpected invitations emerging all around us, beckoning for our attention. As the poet David Whyte once said, "What you can plan is too small for you to live." Plans are usually based on facts we already know or can see from where we're standing, opinions that we already hold. But life is peppered with surprise and serendipity that are impossible to plan for or all around. Plans are about seeing every step, executing each action as we see it from right here, right now. They dictate in great detail the how. But that's the thing we want to move away from. That's why in advertising we use creative briefs to capture a clear ambition or desired outcome, and then we leave open how we get there.
Wow. I'm sure the audience loved it at the Cannes Lion yesterday. And one last question. So if someone who's stuck in their work or life, what's the first question they should ask themselves?
There's many favorite questions, but I'm going to give you 3 of my favorite ones. But the invitation really is to give yourself 10 minutes a day. If you can't do 10 minutes a day, then do 5 minutes a day. And if you can't do 5 minutes a day, then we have to have a conversation. But it's 5 minutes of dropping into your quiet. That's down here, not up here. Dropping into what I call your knowing place. There's knowledge, and then there's knowing. This is a trap. It's a trap of stories. But this place holds your true self, your personal truth. 5 minutes, 10 minutes if you dare, to drop into this place and allow yourself to write without plan, without pause. Set a timer and let whatever comes up for you come out onto the page. That is the essence of this practice. It's the essence of being in relationship with yourself. And it's a private practice. So you don't have to show anyone what comes out. It's the allowance of this to come out without your own filter, without your own fear, your anxieties. That's the practice of truth. And you can focus on one question a day. And I ask people to do it for 14 days, 2 weeks. That's it. It's not a lot of time. And your first question can be, what do I really want? Or it could be, what's worth wanting? Or it can be, what lights me up?
Wow.
Or it could be, what is enough? What does enough look like? If I had 2 questions I would love the world to answer for themselves is, what is worth wanting? And what is enough? I think we live in a world that knows no constraints. It's this insatiable hunger for growth. And I think it's time for all of us to answer for ourselves what enough looks like in tangible forms.
Yes. And since we always end our sessions with, like a winning message, an inspiring message, and maybe you can club it with that when you were writing in your career, the life brief, did you feel it was risky? And the second part of the question is, how do we inspire when people don't want to take the plunge, the women out there?
There is no reward if there is no risk. I know that's a cliche, but it's true. It comes from a truth. It is your source of aliveness. But with clarity, what used to feel like risk, no longer. It feels like a first that you must taste, a bet that you must make in service of soul-satisfying fulfillment. So risk is in the eyes of the beholder, and clarity helps you know which risks are actually investments. And I think the thing I've discovered time and again is we all have more choice, more agency, and more creativity than the world has conditioned for us to believe. Those limits are not real, they're not true, and if you dare to have the courage to live by your truth, which starts by allowing your truth to come out in front of you, then you will live what I call no regrets living.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope
you, Studi.
you can inspire us again in New York,
I would
September
love that.
24th, Climate Week. And but thank you so much. And I'm really glad that this worked out. And I'm going to read your book. I mean, when I saw that you were going to be at Cannes, I really wanted you here.
Thank
But
you.